Thank you. Well, good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome all of you here this afternoon. I'm especially pleased that we're joined by Mr. Botwinick, as well as members of our Board of Overseers, and we have some both current and former Botwinick scholars who are with us here today to help us honor Patrick Cescau with the 2007 Botwinick Prize in Business Ethics. The prize was established in 1989 by Benjamin Botwinick, who graduated from the business school in 1926, together with his wife, Bessie. Benjamin Botwinick deeply appreciated the responsibility that business has to society, and that was the impetus for the creation of the prize. And we're pleased to have today, as I said, Benjamin Botwinick's son with us, Mr. Edward Botwinick. Each year, the prize recognizes an individual who represents an exceptional example of ethical leadership. And I must say, I've really enjoyed and admired the things that we discussed earlier today with Patrick Cescau, as well as what I've learned about what he's done at Unilever over the past year or so, my reading. The prize gives expression to Columbia Business School's broader commitment to ethics and the teaching of business. And this is the theme of the school's curriculum on the individual, business, and society, which runs throughout the first-year MBA program. The curriculum is overseen by our Bernstein Center for Leadership and Ethics, and it's a partnership between students and faculty. Last year, we successfully recruited Bruce Kogut to Columbia Business School to take over the leadership of the center and to serve as the Sanford C. Bernstein Company Professor of Leadership and Ethics. Bruce will present the 2007 Botwinick Prize in Business Ethics to Patrick Cescau. Bruce?
I was given many instructions today, Paul, but no one told me I had to carry something which might break so easily in my hand, so at least I've accomplished that first purpose. It's a great pleasure to be here and to welcome Patrick Cescau here to us in honor of his contributions which he has made to the business world and to society. As you all know, Patrick is the Group Chief Executive of Unilever. He was appointed into this job in April 2005 and is the first person to hold this new position in the company's history. Patrick is a graduate of INSEAD. His daughter is a graduate of Columbia Business School, and we're very happy to have both of them here in the family this afternoon. He started his career in 1973 when he joined the French operations. As an organization officer. He had the great privilege to work in many countries. I know he'll be talking about some of them today, and these include the Netherlands, Indonesia, Portugal, and in the US, which he knows very well. In the area of CSR, I think it's fair to say that Patrick is truly a thought leader. This is a term which has been much debated over the years. And perhaps it's fair to say it's a term which has not convinced everyone. There's been many debates. I know many of you in this audience have been involved in CSR debates among yourselves, among other students, talking about whether this is a good idea or a bad idea. The great change, I think, contributed by Patrick and Unilever is to step away from this debate and say, in fact, that there is a win-win in this area. And the terms which come up are terms such as social innovation or terms as sustainable development. And with these terms, what's been forged is very much a corporate strategy, trying to find ways in which value, economic value, can be created, but at the same time, we can pursue social objectives and goals. In fact, I think it's even more interesting, the statement which Patrick has made on a number of occasions, and that is that the corporation of the future, one which survives, is the one who understands how to achieve both these objectives, economic value and the social values together. And they've done this, as he'll tell us today, both through a management of the supply chain side, as well as a positioning of the product in new ways across many countries. I have great confidence that you'll enjoy hearing Patrick and hear about the new practices around social innovation, which his corporation has brought into play. With that, let me ask Paul perhaps to join me so that we can honor him with this prize, and I can move the burden of the award to directly.
We're not done yet.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Bruce, Dean, ladies and gentlemen. It is both a privilege and also a pleasure to be at Columbia. A privilege because you are one of the world's great academic institutions, and a pleasure because over the years your alumni have been a very fertile source of management talent for Unilever. Some of them are present today, notably Charlie Strauss, who until 2003 was a director of our company. It is also a particular honor to accept the Botwinick Prize for Business Ethics for 2007. And when I look at the list of previous recipients, I feel even more proud. Indeed, I can't let the occasion pass without taking the opportunity to pay a tribute to one of those recipients, Dame Anita Roddick, who, as you know, very sadly died last month at the age of only 64. Though I never met Anita, she was a source of enormous inspiration to many people in all walks of life. That was one of her great achievements. She transcended the worlds of business, politics, and environmental activism. She showed us the true meaning and the power of working together in partnership. Anita Roddick was, of course, a woman of great vision, but she understood that vision by itself was not enough, that to be successful in business while simultaneously helping to tackle deep-seated social problems required actions to match words. And this approach resonates very strongly with me because it also happens to be the Unilever way. I've seen it and experienced it throughout all of the 35 years that I've spent with the company. And in the last 3 years, I've had the privilege as a CEO to help lead and direct our efforts to give real expression to the idea of doing well by doing good. But this award is not, I would suggest, about the last 3 years. It is about hard work and dedication for over four generations. In fact, it goes back to the very origins of our company. By the time William Eskeith Lever co-founded Unilever in 1930, he had already built up a very significant reputation as a man ahead of his time. When he launched the world's first branded soap product, Sunlight, in 1885, he set out to create not simply a great business, but a company with a strong social mission. Lever was deeply concerned about the poor health and living conditions of 19th century British workers and their families. And he saw the contribution that a successful business could make to the problem. But he was also a man of great energy and action. He was a pioneer in improving his workers' condition. He campaigned for better pay and pensions, shorter working hours, and the provision of good quality housing at a time when slums were the norm. Today, in Britain and in other parts of the world, the name Lever Brothers remains synonymous with social progress and reform, and William Lever's garden village at Port Sunlight stands as a permanent reminder to the power of his ideals. And at Unilever today, we continue to be guided and inspired by his example. So for these reasons, It is a great honor to be able to accept this award today on behalf of all those at Unilever, past and present. But I also welcome and indeed very much appreciate the opportunity you have given me to contribute some thoughts to the world debate as part of your annual conference on social enterprise, because I do believe very strongly that business should have a point of view and be willing to explain and account for the action it takes. And from my perspective, where better to engage in that discussion than at one of the world's foremost business schools, among scholars who are leaders in their field and among a group of young people who will, I'm sure, go on to form the next generation of business leaders. I do hope so, because my daughter, Samantha, who graduated with her MBA in 2005, is among your number, and rather worryingly from my point of view, is also in the audience today. So, in the time I have available, I want to do three things. I want to talk about why business has a role to play in addressing some of today's biggest social challenges, and why, in particular, I believe that economic growth and poverty alleviation go hand in hand. I then want to set out how, in Unilever, we are addressing these challenges, and I will do so by reference to 4 case studies, which is appropriate, of course, in a business school. And finally, I want to throw down a challenge by talking a little about the role I think business education can play. It's a lot to cover, but I will certainly leave time for question and discussion. Before I address this theme, let me say a word or two about Unilever, because while we undoubtedly retain the values exemplified by our founding father, William Lever, the business has evolved somewhat over the last 3/4 of a century. Today, Unilever is one of the world's largest and most international consumer goods business. We have operations in around 100 countries and sales in over 150. Our products are present in half the households on the planet. More than 43% of our turnover comes from developing and emerging markets. 160 million times a day, someone, somewhere, will purchase a Unilever brand. Our 50 billion turnover, $50 billion that is spread around 400 brands in the categories of food, home care, and personal care. Over 10 billion of that turnover is here in the United States, where we have a thriving business driven by brands like Dove, Hellmann's, Ragu, Ben & Jerry, and Lipton, just to name a few. So let's start now with the question of what role business should play in society. 30 years ago, when Anita Roddick opened a first body shop, the concept of corporate responsibility and sustainable development barely existed. The idea that companies had responsibility to society beyond making a few charitable donations did not really start to take shape until a decade later. But a lot has changed since then. Today, social responsibility and environmental sustainability are core business competencies, not fringe activities. We have come a very long way since the early 80s, when Milton Friedman proudly proclaimed that the only obligation which business has to society was to make a profit and pay its taxes. Now, this change has come about for a variety of reasons. Certainly, the political context has changed. The laissez-faire economics which characterized the Reagan and Thatcher era have been superseded by a more realistic assessment of what the invisible hand of the market can achieve acting alone. And today, there is a growing recognition that the social and environmental challenges facing us are so complex and so multidimensional that they can only be solved if government, NGOs, and industry worked effectively together. It is difficult, for example, to imagine a problem like climate change, being addressed without the active participation of Shell, GE, and Toyota. Likewise, it is very hard to see an issue like poor nutrition or obesity being effectively tackled without the involvement of the world's major food companies. Slowly but surely, both government and NGO are accepting that business has a role to play in the development agenda and that we can be trusted. But perhaps the biggest catalyst for change has been the increasing awareness within business itself that many of the big social and environmental challenges of our age, once seen as obstacles to progress, have become opportunities for innovation and product development. And I believe we have come to a point now where this agenda of sustainability and corporate responsibility is not only central to business strategy, but will increasingly become a critical driver of business growth. I would go further. I believe that how well and how quickly businesses respond to this agenda will determine which companies succeed and which will fail in the next few decades. And certainly doing business responsibly has served Unilever well. If you look at our share price over the past 25 years and compare it with the S&P 500, you can see that doing well and doing good are not mutually exclusive. But just as importantly, we believe that our activities have had a positive effect on both economic development and poverty reduction in the markets where we operate. In 2003, we joined forces with Oxfam, which is an unlikely bedfellow for Unilever, to research this very question. And together we embarked on a project to analyze the impacts of our business in one of our largest markets. The country we chose was Indonesia, a country where I spent a formative part of my career and where I've seen the damaging effect of poverty firsthand. The report that we jointly produced highlighted a number of very interesting things. Firstly, it demonstrated that most of the cash value that Unilever creates in Indonesia stays in the local economy. And this challenges head-on the perception which some NGOs have that multinationals are mere extractors of wealth who make large profits locally that are immediately remitted to shareholders in London and New York without benefiting to the local economy. Secondly, the report looked at the impact of our upstream supply chain. It found that 84% of our raw and packaging materials were sourced from local suppliers, thereby creating not just jobs, but technology transfer from other Unilever factories around the world. And finally, our report revealed the extent to which our operation in Indonesia have a major multiplier effect on job creation. While Unilever Indonesia itself employs around 5,000 employees, the business supports the full-time equivalent of 300,000 jobs, more than half of them in a distribution and retail chain. This study, which I commend to you, has now been written up as a case study by a minor business school somewhere on the outskirts of Boston. Encouraged by the Indonesian exercise, we have initiated a second study, and this time in Africa. Working with Ethan Kapstein, Professor of Sustainable Development at INSEAD, we are now investigating the social, economical, and environmental impact of Unilever's operation in South Africa. The study will be published in early 2008. And what the study will show, and Unilever evidence and experience suggest, is that business can be a positive force for good at a macroeconomic level. But just as instructive, however, is to look at the impact it can have on job creation and economic activity at a micro level. An excellent example of that is Project Shakti in India. At the end of the 90s, our Indian subsidiary, Hindustan Unilever, realized that if they were to maintain their growth trajectory, then they would need to find a way of selling their products to the rural poor. 1 in 8 people on the planet lives in an Indian village. There are some 650,000 of them, all very isolated. Very few of them served by a retail distribution network. The solution that we came up with to reach these potential new consumers was to tap into existing networks of women's self-help groups which had grown up on the back of microcredit financing schemes. From this group, we recruited our Shakti entrepreneurs who, with training and support, became our local sales representative. And their role was to go door to door selling our products. Of course, it was not our standard range. We had to re-engineer our products in such a way that they were affordable and relevant to people on desperately low incomes. More often than not, this implied small pack formats, mainly sachets, which could be sold at price as low as 1 or 2 Indian rupees. And what I suggest now is that we meet one of these Shakti women.
कौसल्या सुप्रजा रामपूर्वा सन्ध्या प्रवर्तते उत्तिष्ठ नरशार्दूल कर्तव्यं दैवमाह्निकम् कौसल्या सुप्रजा रामपूर्वा सन्ध्या प्रवर्तते उत्तिष्ठ नरशार्दूल कर्तव्यं दैवमाह्निकम् उत्तिष्ठोत्तिष्ठ गोविन्द उत्तिष्ठ गरुडध्वज.
My name is Rojamma, and this is my story. I was born in a small village outside Hyderabad called Kurumurti 33 years ago. My parents were poor. And even in our small village, most people were better off than us. Somehow, when I was 17, my father managed to marry me to a man. I did my duty. And we had our first daughter. A few years later, I had another daughter. My husband left me. I don't know why. I was all alone with my daughters. Nobody else would marry me. A few years later, some people came to our village and held a meeting. I also went. They said, "We will help you women to form a group. We will show you how to help yourselves." It felt good to be part of the group. But feeling good is not the same as eating food. Then one day, the group people brought a man to the village. The man opened his box, and inside were lots of things. The company people showed us how to sell the packets, how to run our own business, how to educate others. And from that moment, my life changed. Shakti means strength. And that is what I gained that day. The day I became a Shakti dealer. Today I wake up at 5 o'clock and quickly finish the cooking. I go from village to village before the people leave for the fields. I show them what they can buy. I tell them what the man told me. How this soap will help you to stay free from disease. How this will keep your children's clothes clean. And I teach the others. Some have become Shakti dealers too. Their lives have changed as well. In fact, slowly the life in our village itself is advancing. And people around me have modern, useful things in their homes. Every month, I sell things for 10 to 20,000 rupees. My house earning has doubled. But there's something more important than money. When people see me coming to their village, they rush and crowd around me. They call me Shakti Amma. Everybody knows me. I am someone now, and I can begin to have big dreams. I want to have a Shakti shop with lots of packets. Every day I will sell. Every day I will earn money and respect. My daughters will get married. They will have happier lives because I will make them Shakti dealers too.
The Shakti project is at the intersection between social responsibility and business strategy. The wider societal benefits of the schemes are obvious. It creates economic activity at the very bottom of the pyramid. It gives poor people access to products that address their basic needs for hygiene and nutrition. But it gives also dignity and a sense of empowerment to a large number of rural women. At the same time, the business benefits are substantial. Today, we have over 40,000 Shakti entrepreneurs operating in close to 100,000 villages and serving close to 100 million consumers. The revenues generated are now very considerable and the margins healthy. Make no mistake, Shakti is not a philanthropic activity. It is a serious and profitable commercial proposition. So far, I have focused on the economic benefits of business. But now I would like to give an example of a brand which has a clearly defined social mission. The brand is Lifebuoy. And the region again, South Asia, which is India and Pakistan and Bangladesh. Now the background, every 10 seconds, somewhere in the world, a child dies from diarrhea. 1/3 of these deaths occur in India. Most are children under 5. Yet, according to the World Bank, something as mundane and simple as washing hands with soap can reduce diarrheal diseases by half. Lifebuoy has been India's leading soap brand for decades. In 2002, it launched the largest rural health and hygiene education program ever undertaken in India. It is called Swasthya Chetna, which means health awakening in Sanskrit. And piggybacking on the infrastructure created by Shakti, Lifebuoy health education teams visit thousands of schools and communities to teach children about the existence of germs and the importance of washing hands with soap. Marketing activity of the Lifebuoy kind is a classic win-win. The education program has a measurable impact on public health, whilst the benefit for Lifebuoy comes through in an expanding market for soap, which allows strong sales year on year, nearly again more than 15% last year. Positive though the impact of brands like Lifebuoy might be, it is of itself insufficient. Business in the first decade of the 21st century has to do more than just deliver economic and social benefits. And in a world whose biophysical resources are seriously constrained, we need to ensure that our activities are sustainable from an environmental perspective as well. The example I've chosen to illustrate my point here is tea. Unilever is the biggest tea company in the world. Tea remains, after water, the world's most popular beverage. Some 5 billion cups are drunk every day, whether it is the black tea that is consumed in countries such as the UK, Russia, Poland, Arabia, and Turkey, the green tea in China, or the iced tea invented here in the US and now being successfully exported around the world. Unilever buys about 12% of the world's entire black tea crop. We serve a market of about $40 billion, and one of our brands, Lipton, is by far the #1 global tea brand. 5 months ago, we made an extraordinary commitment, not my word, but those of Jonathan Porritt, one of Britain's leading sustainable thinkers. We declare that Unilever would move to purchase all its tea from sustainable sources. We asked a respected international non-governmental organization, the Rainforest Alliance, to certify and audit our progress. And as you probably know, the Rainforest Alliance already has expertise in sustainable forestry and farming, including the certification of crops like coffee, cocoa, and fruit. And it will now add tea estate to its programs. Tea is an industry which has long suffered from the twin problems of oversupply and underperformance. This has driven down prices, putting pressure on the environment and on people's ability to make a decent living. By moving to a sustainable model, we hope to do something to improve that picture. We believe that teaching farmers to farm smarter is an investment in the quality of the product they grow, as well as the quality of the environment they depend upon, ultimately leading to a better standard of life for farmers, farm workers, and their families. Experience in crops, in coffee, for example, show that farmers receive higher prices for certified crops. And it will appeal to the growing number of consumers who like, as they say, to look behind the label and ask about the ethics of the products they buy. The scale of change we envisage is remarkable. 2 million people across the world are directly involved in supplying tea to Unilever. And we believe that our commitment will materially improve their quality of life. In order to get certified, Unilever suppliers will have to meet a rigorous set of standards prescribed by the Rainforest Alliance. These include improved agronomic practices, that is using less fertilizer, fewer pesticides, less water, more demanding biodiversity standards such as protection of rivers and streams, wildlife conservation, and tree planting. And also better care of workers, embracing everything from access to proper housing to provision of education and medical care. Take a look at this film, which explains a little more in detail what we are trying to achieve.
Tea is a very important crop. It's a widely used crop, as everybody knows. It's also one that is extremely important in terms of the livelihoods of many small producers in Africa and also in India and Latin America, Southeast Asia. We're very enthusiastic about working with Unilever as a partner to really develop this program. We've seen in the tea sector there's been some very good work done, but at a very small niche level, a specialty tea level. And what's exciting about working with Unilever is the opportunity to really mainstream sustainability into the tea industry. We're also thrilled with the opportunity to work with producers and workers on tea estates to help them have a better quality of life, increased income, increased productivity, and also protect the water and the wildlife of their areas for their children and their grandchildren.
Unilever is the world's largest tea company. buying around 12% of the world's black tea for its brands such as global market leader Lipton and the UK's bestseller PG Tibbs. In 2007, Unilever announced its intention to purchase all its tea from sustainable, ethical sources.
I think it's a commitment from a large corporation, from the leader of an industry, to change completely the industry. And so it is very significant. It will impact the way the industry produces tea, the way people live in the plantation, and I think it will also have a positive impact on the two brands, Lipton Yellow Label and PG, because people will know what's behind the teacup that they love.
Unilever has asked international NGO Rainforest Alliance to start auditing its own and suppliers' farms against a detailed set of sustainability standards.
Rainforest Alliance certification is a sustainability certification. That means that we're focused on the economics, the social, and the environmental side of what's happening on a farm or a forest operation. We have teams of auditors that assess the farms against those criteria, issue a report, have changes that are required. The farm meets those requirements over a period of time. They're able to use the Rainforest Alliance seal, which provides them with that recognition in the marketplace for the investments they've made in certification. The Rainforest Alliance seal of approval makes it easy for consumers to choose those products that are sustainable.
Unilever's own tea estate at Kericho in Kenya was the first to achieve Rainforest Alliance certification and was quickly followed by other suppliers in East Africa. Kericho has been developing sustainability practices since the early 1990s. In 1998, Unilever started its Sustainable Agriculture Programme for tea, researching and defining good practice guidelines that it has also shared with thousands of small tea farmers. This experience stood the estate in good stead to meet around 200 standards that underpin the Rainforest Alliance's 10 broad principles of sustainability. To reach the scale needed to meet Unilever's volume requirements will take time. By 2010, all Lipton Yellow Label and PG Tips tea bags sold in Western Europe will be certified by the Rainforest Alliance, and by 2015, all Lipton tea bags sold worldwide. This commitment has the potential to improve the livelihoods of nearly 1 million people in Africa, and eventually up to 2 million people across 3 continents.
I'm sure that because we are the first one to take a positive step in that direction on such a bold level, that people will see that and have a stronger link with the brand. You know, when you do something and you know that you combine good business while doing good to the society, I think it's really a good place to be.
The Lipton story, just like the Lifebuoy story, is a win-win. Our consumer will have the reassurance that the tea they enjoy is sustainably grown. Subsistence farmers will get improved incomes. Tea pluckers will be better off. The environment will be better protected. And of course, we expect to sell more tea. This is the way forward for business and brands. At one level, it is very simple. It is about brands continuing to give consumers the functional benefits they seek, while at the same time maximizing the social benefits and minimizing the environmental impacts. The example that I've chosen so far all come from the developing world, but closer to home, here in the USA, we market a brand with a strong social mission. The brand is Dove, and the mission is the campaign for real beauty, and I'm sure that all the Columbia alumni would be delighted to know that Shelley Lazarus, the chairwoman of Ogilvy and Mather, has been one of the inspiration behind Dove. So here we are. What we do there is that we work with Girl Scouts, teachers, and other groups to boost the self-esteem of young girls whose self-image and self-confidence is undermined by the fashion industry distorted portrayal of beauty. And I'm going to show you the latest viral campaign from Dove.
Smaller, lighter, fuller, tighter, thinner, softer. It really works.
In reality, finding the sweet spot between meeting the needs of society, the needs of the planet, and the needs of consumers as citizens is complex. But it will be a real differentiator for those who do it well and do it with integrity. So to summarize, there have been a number of themes to my presentation. Business can play an effective role in development and poverty reduction, as demonstrated by our experience in Indonesia and South Africa. New business models, such as Shakti, can reach the poorest of the poor and at the same time produce good level of profitability. And brands can be an agent of positive social change. Look at the public health benefit which Lifebuoy is delivering. Business has to become genuinely sustainable, and this is a win-win opportunity. Our decision to buy tea from sustainable sources is good news for farmers, good news for consumers, good news for the environment, and it makes good business sense. Finally, and more importantly, there is no dichotomy between business doing well and doing good. And in fact, the two go hand in hand. All of the brands I've talked about are very successful brands and growing rapidly. All are profitable. If they weren't, their social and environmental initiative would not be sustainable. Both parties, business and society, need to benefit. I started this presentation by saying that social responsibility and sustainable development are no longer fringe activities, but are central to our business. And just as this agenda has become core to business, so it should also become core to management education. It must be moved to the very heart of the curriculum. Business schools generally need to give much more prominence to this subject than they have historically. Some, Columbia is one of them, are beginning to do so successfully. But many are very slow to integrate this agenda. Doing business in the 21st century is a much more subtle and complex process that some MBA courses would lead one to believe. Of course, there is a place for the financial modeling, for DCF calculation and yield curves. But in the end, the big decisions in business are about culture and consumers. And Colombia is setting a shining example with initiatives like the Botwinick Prize. And I'm profoundly grateful for the recognition you have given me today, and it is with great pride that I accept this award, but I accept it on behalf of the 170,000 people who work for Unilever. Thank you.